So we're back with another Spotlight series where we highlight great men who are doing some great things in the city. We are from the Mayor's Office of Black Male Engagement, and we have an interview so nice that we did it twice with Reverend Dr. Alyn Waller from the Enon Baptist Church. So we're just going to jump right in with some things that you appreciate, some things that make you feel good, some things that you have a passion for. And I know in the previous interview, you talked a little bit about music. Can you tell us about your love for music and sort of what that does for you?
I absolutely love music. My mother was my father's minister of music at Shiloh Baptist Church in Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up with a piano in the house. I learned at an early age that I could sing. It literally, coming home from a Billy Graham crusade in 1972 in Cleveland, Ohio, we were singing in the back of the car, and it was my first recollection. I was 8 years old. I was like, I sound like the record. But these were back in the days when Michael Jackson had the high voice and the dark skin
Right.
and the afro.
The Black
and
Michael.
I said, yeah, and I could sound like Michael Jackson, and I could sing Frankie Lyman songs. And I started loving it then, and started singing in church, and just loved music as a child, and my undergrad is in music. I wanted to do something very different than ministry. My line name when I pledged was Peebo Jr.
Right.
I wanted to be, I wanted my day in the sun. It never happened,
Sure.
but that's where I was headed before I accepted my call to ministry.
Got it.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. I've heard you sing on a couple of occasions. You sound great. It's actually reminiscent of one of those tenors and Three Mo Tenors.
Got you.
Yeah. So I mean, you have a great voice, an awesome voice, and music has done a lot, not only for individuals, also for our people. We've struggled, and a lot of times throughout the struggles and the tribulations, music has really helped to been there for us. So I just want to talk about, you introduce yourself as Reverend Dr. Alyn Waller, and the Reverend portion. Next year will mark in the history books, the 400th year for Melanin Enriched folks, folks who identified as Negro and many other things, and Black or African American today, if you will. How important today is understanding, being involved in religion and sort of this sense of spirituality that folks talk about?
It's critical for two reasons. Knowing to be African is to also be theological. There is no there is no African culture that does not acknowledge deity. And so for our survival, we need to acknowledge the spirit man that is inside of us. I believe that the story of God as revealed through Jesus Christ is the culminating story of God's revelation to us that predates Europe and predates our slavery. And so it is important to us to know God through that story. But I also believe that the Black church and Black men were born in this this story also to now keep Christianity Christian. Imperialistic Christianity that comes to us out of Rome and comes to us through the Constantinian strain is so antithetical to the radical religion of Jesus.
Sure.
And when you understand sort of the history of Christianity on the continent, and even how God used, and some will be offended by this language, but how God has used our suffering to bring forth the truth of this religious experience is important. The Black church is here in America right now to keep Christianity Christian. And when you look at what has happened to Christianity, Where it's growing is on the continent of Africa. Where it's dying is Europe. And in America, where it's growing is where there is a strong Pentecostalism and Afrosensitivity, and where it's dying is in the commitment to mainline European traditions.
Sure.
And so it is critical both for our survival and the survival of our country that we know who God is, and I believe embrace his story as revealed through his son Jesus.
That's amazing. It's great information and great news to hear about. Thank you for that. We want to transition to an educational question, right? So we have Reverend Dr. Alyn Waller. And in my mind, there's no reason to not believe that black men and boys can read, write, think, and compute at levels that are competitive locally, nationally, globally, et cetera. And I've heard, many of your sermons and some of your speeches, and you've used words that I don't understand sometimes, so I have to have a dictionary.
That's 'cause I make 'em up.
Right. No,
I get you.
so I understand you're a bit of a logophile as well. My question to you is today,
Yeah.
in your opinion, how important is education, or sort of why is education, or should it be important to men and boys of color?
Absolutely. It should be. It's very important. I think all of us have to maximize our abilities. My story of my calling is really a transition. I wasn't a good student in undergrad. I accepted my call into ministry my second senior year, as some people call the victory lap.
Yeah.
But from that moment on, I became a really good student. I mean, my master's level work and my doctorate is in marriage and family counseling. That's where my passion is, around marriage, around family. But I learned that I could think.
Sure.
I am a theologian. I am a counselor. And I say that not braggadociously. I say that because I'm the dude that failed English in ninth grade and failed math in the ninth grade and lost a year of eligibility in the sport that I love because I didn't do good. I'm the little boy that they were looking to put in special ed in third grade. And so when we see those boys in school right now, I'm a living witness that whatever the story is right there, it can end differently.
Got it.
And that we should not write them off. And so that's why I enjoy when someone says Reverend Dr. Alyn Waller, and not, I don't need the title, but some young boy needs to know the same thing that happened with me can happen with them. And quite frankly, this is America. This is a place of credentials. There are some doors you can't get in if you don't have the credentials to be in there.
Sure.
And some of us have to go get the credentials, go in those rooms, and make sure we remind the decision makers in those rooms that we exist.
Sure.
Because in many cases, where the real decisions of life are being made, we're not there, and they are increasingly not being made with us in mind.
Understood. So as we bring this interview to a close, would you mind telling us a little bit, giving us a little sneak peek into your book that's coming out?
Yes.
Perhaps what it's about, how we can get it, and just give us some tidbits of advice from your book.
Thank you. It's my book is coming out on Simon Schuster, and it is called The Code of the Righteous Warrior,
Sure.
10 Laws of Moral Manhood for These Uncertain Times. What it is, being a righteous warrior is a movement for me. It's in the 90s, there were two men's movements that did not totally speak to my heart. There was the Promise Keeper and the Million Man March. Promise Keeper were white Christians, and that was my theology, but not my sociology.
Sure.
Million Man March was, by and large, a wonderfully sociologically adept movement of men that was not Christ-centered. What it means to be a righteous warrior is to take the truth of both those worlds. As an African-American man, I am a Christian with a heart for the community. And there are some basic principles that I think are derived from the Bible about how to live this thing. Keeping it simple, preserving your resources, knowing when to fight, playing hurt, These are all principles. And the book is about my journey and some of my friends, our journey through the midlife negotiation. And so it's full of stories of extreme sports. So I tell it through my experience of running in the pin relays or fighting in Israel with Krav Maga or going to Thailand and fighting in Muay Thai and what I've taught. The righteous warrior, I believe there's a warrior in all of us that needs to come out. And I've traveled the world looking to understand the warrior in every culture.
Sure.
And I want to call out the warrior in you and the warrior in me. And warrior is not just somebody who fights,
Sure.
but it's a man who understands who he is, who understands that he's in something much larger than himself, and that he's willing to live for and to die for. It's coming out May 7th, and I'm prayerful that the men of Philadelphia are going to embrace it first, and then hopefully men around this country will want to be righteous warriors, men who love themselves, who love God, who love their families, who live and act responsibly, and want to leave this place better than how we found it.
Sure. That sounds like some serious stuff in the book, and we're very excited to be reading it very shortly in May. Hopefully we can pick it up at Bobby's, Uncle Bobby's bookstore.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's
and
exactly
other
who's gonna
vendors
have it.
around
That's
the city.
right. That's right.
Absolutely. And we're very excited. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things, and I, in my head, imagine you fighting Muay Thai and, fighting against it in various ways. It's a very honorable thing to give to us, and we thank you for that. We're always touched, moved, and inspired to hear you speak, and we really just want to thank you and humbly thank you for being here and being giving of your time today.
Thank you.
And we ask that you come back in the near future, if that's okay.
I look forward to it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right.